Game Week 12 is here, so it's time to lock in those FPL teams. Welcome to FPL Mate, my name is Dan, and I am on a wildcard right now, so I'm very excited to share with you my draft. It's looking very, very good, and I think you guys are going to like it, so let's get going. Before we get started, this video is sponsored by Fantasy Football Hub, and they're currently running their Green Friday deal where you can get 30 days full access completely for free on all of Fantasy Football Hub's amazing tools. Just use the link at the top of the description. We're going to be showcasing a couple of their tools today that are really, really useful if you want to improve your game of FPL. It's the Christmas period. This is a big time for FPL, so if you want to be involved in those tools, link in the description. So first of all, let's very quickly run through my Game Week 11 scores. We have to do this. I know you guys are excited to see the wildcard team, but for me, it was a really, really tragic game week, really. Lots of things went wrong. So for example, Trent Alexander-Arnold getting injured, so he couldn't get those clean sheet points. We had Haaland getting a yellow card in the, 109th minute? No, 99th minute. Crazy, which cost him 3 points because I captained him. It cost me 6 points. And the Spurs, guys, double Spurs attack, Johnson and Solanke, and yet both blanked against Ipswich. It was just so unexpected, particularly as I was, during the game week, as high as 500k in the world at one point before Haaland got that yellow card. And it all just went wrong from there. Salah punishing me again with a little bit of good fortune on his end as well. So really painful one. I don't think it reflected the quality of my team for Game Week 11. I've really been punished for it. But with a wild card, we can get things back on track super quickly. The wild card at this stage of the season is such an advantage, and I plan on making it count and bursting into those top ranks where I feel like I belong. And guys, if you find this video useful, make sure you do leave a like, because you're currently on a yellow card for not liking the video. One more and you'll get a red. Like the video, let's have a look at my wildcard team. So, of course, being on a wildcard, I do have unlimited free transfers. And the team I've made has a team value of 101.2 million. We've got 0.2 million in the bank to make any other changes, but I'm pretty set on this team now and have been for a few days. So I don't know if I'm 100% locked, but we're certainly getting towards those kind of areas. So first of all, let's go to the goalkeeper, and it's going to be Verbruggen. I was between Verbruggen and Sanchez. If I had a little bit more team value, I would maybe consider going for Raya in that position as well. Those are the three goalkeepers I was considering. Raya, a little bit too expensive for what I want to build with. I really want to prioritize spending money in the attacking positions from this point onwards, as there's not been too many clean sheets. Defenders have been disappointing this season, and the problem with Sanchez is I'm just not totally convinced by him as a goalkeeper, and I wonder if he can maybe be rotated or maybe lose his place in the Chelsea team. There is a small amount of risk there, and I can save 0.2 million by going for a player like Verbruggen. Now, granted, Brighton haven't been the best defence this season, sitting just below mid-table. What you'll soon very quickly see is because they've played so many difficult games, which has kind of contributed to their less than ideal defensive numbers, because they've played all those difficult teams, they now have an amazing run of fixtures for a very long time. Now, it's very likely that I will be holding this goalkeeper all the way until my second wildcard, and who knows when I'll be playing that, probably very deep into the second half of the season. So it's important I have a goalkeeper who has consistent good fixtures, and also someone who is cheap, and also someone who makes regular saves. And Verbruggen fits all of those categories. He fits that to an absolute T. So love the look of these fixtures for him. I think with Van Hecke back and Dunk coming back very soon, we are going to see an improvement on Brighton's defence, particularly with the vastly improved fixtures. I mean, looking through some of these guys, Southampton in 13, Leicester, Palace, West Ham in 15, 16, 17. These are all great opportunities for clean sheets, and I think they will come for Brighton. So I'm going for Verbruggen as my goalkeeper. Let's continue on into the defensive areas, and we are going to have a look at Gabriel next. He is my only real expensive defensive asset in this FPL team. And I do like the look of Arsenal's fixtures as well. They've had some difficult fixtures recently, which again means that their fixtures coming up are looking much better. Particularly from a defensive point of view, I like Forest and West Ham. I like Everton, Palace, Ipswich there in a row as well. There are some really nice opportunities here, and another player who I can just play every single game week. He does have a decent amount of attacking threat from those set pieces, being that aerial threat, and he will will score the occasional goal as well, which I'm looking forward to maybe getting the odd 15-pointer from him. We know defenders can do that sometimes when they get the clean sheet, the goal, and the bonus points as well. So hopefully Arsenal can start to pick up some clean sheets, because genuinely their defensive data has been really, really solid. And speaking of defensive data, I want to have a look at the first 11 game weeks of the season. Who is the best team for non-penalty expected goals against? Of course, we know Liverpool are at the top of this table. They have got some slightly more difficult fixtures coming up, but I definitely think Liverpool players, Liverpool defenders are worth considering. Forest in second place here, 10.9 non-penalty expected goals against, and I do worry about Forest's fixtures, because kind of like Liverpool, they've had some really great fixtures, which has contributed towards their clean sheet potential. Now, Arsenal currently sit in third place here. I think that will improve. I think they will go up the table. And it does show that Arsenal, despite all of their perceived flaws, are putting up consistent good defensive data. And I think the good clean sheets will come. But I've got a few more defenders to pick in my FPL team, and I need to work out how am I going to select them? Well, I myself have a couple of criteria for this as well. First of all, I want to pick defenders from teams who I think are at least capable of clean sheets. So I don't want those defenders from Ipswich, Southampton, Brentford, West Ham. I don't trust these defenses very much. I want to go for the teams maybe in the top half of the table. You know, I'm looking at the likes of Chelsea, Aston Villa, Fulham, Bournemouth, Newcastle. These kind of teams could be really nice to pick some defenders from, and hopefully play some of those players in the better fixtures with a bit of a rotation. We've got a really nice defensive rotation, a four-way cheap defender rotation that I'm going to share with you guys. But my first criteria is I want from solid defenses, or at least mostly from solid-ish defenses. Obviously, I want them to be very cheap as well, and there's plenty of options there. But here's my second criteria. I want defenders from teams with attacking potential. I want those defenders who are capable of getting an assist, getting a goal. These kind of players is what I'm looking for, because clean sheets have been difficult to come by this season. So even though you might get the odd one by targeting the, above average defenses, you're also going to need a couple of attacking returns to make them worthwhile in your team. So let's have a look through here. You can see this is a table of defenders ranked by expected goal involvement over the past 6 game weeks, so we can get a good idea of attacking form for these players. And at the top, we see players like Davis, Emerson, Collins, Munoz. None of these players fit the first criteria of playing for a solid defense, so I'm not going to cover them. After that, we see the likes of Digne and Hall. Trent, we're going to discount him, a little bit expensive, probably not going to play in game week 12 either. But Digne and Hall straight away stand out as the defenders I really like the look of. Very, very creative, putting in key passes, taking the occasional shot for Luca Dean as well. He's taking 1 shot per game, which is really nice, kind of producing maybe 1.5 key passes per game as well, same as Hull. And these are 2 defenses that I think are pretty decent. Aston Villa, pretty good numbers. Lewis Hall, Newcastle, improving numbers. And both of these teams have some very nice fixtures coming up. So let's add them to the team. Digne and Hall, really nice fixtures for this game week as well. I want to show you also the fixtures and the clean sheet probabilities for these teams. And looking through the clean sheet odds, Arsenal have a 50% chance, Liverpool 42% chance, and Aston Villa and Newcastle are joint third with a 36% chance of a clean sheet. So throughout my 3 starting defenders for game week 12, and we haven't even spoken about my bench defenders yet, already I've got 3 out of the 4 highest chances for clean sheets according to the bookies. I like that a lot. Digne has also been in great form. He's been keeping Theo Hernandez out of the France team. And in fact, against Italy during the international break, Digne got 3 assists, 2 kind of proper assists. The 3rd assist was where he essentially scored a free kick goal, but it did bounce off Vicario, the goalkeeper, before it hit the back of the net. But Digne has been genuinely Aston Villa's probably one of, if not the best player at Aston Villa, and he has cemented his team. Now, is he 100% rotation proof? No. And Digne is a player with high potential, but has a lot of potential to go wrong as well. So if you are going for a player like Digne, I would strongly recommend you have some strong backup defenders who you're comfortable playing each week, just in case Digne does go wrong, to save you having to make a transfer to transfer out Digne if it does turn out that he's not playing every single game week. That is definitely part of the risk, but if you cover yourself, you get those backup defenders to come in just in case things go wrong. I think it's worth taking the risk because the potential, the upside is very much there for this player. He is a player who can score a huge amount of points, as we've seen for France against Italy. Very, very good stuff there. As for Lewis Hall, Newcastle on the up. Got some great fixtures in the next two. We're going to have some rotation players for some of the more difficult fixtures for both Digne and Hall. I really like these defenders that I'm going for right now, but we want to move on to the midfield before we have a look at the bench defenders and the rotation that we will be employing. So first of all, Mo Salah in midfield. Absolutely no surprises here whatsoever to see him in this team with Southampton up next. Really nice fixture for him. And I was looking again through the last 6 game weeks, who is putting up the best data of all players in the Premier League. And even though Haaland's data is slightly better than Salah's, what we know is that those midfielders get that extra point for the goal. They get the clean sheet points as well, which is gonna overall mean that Salah's points potential has actually been a little higher than Haaland's last week. Now, I've ordered these players you see on screen by expected points. That kind of adds together the expected goals, the expected assists, converts it into FPL points to see what we would have expected a player to get during this period. Haaland has massively underperformed, so I'm not trying to say that that Haaland has been competing with Salah. In real life, that hasn't been happening, but the opportunities that Haaland has been getting has actually been very, very close to Salah. But ultimately, Salah is the player in form, Liverpool are the team in form, so it makes sense to go for the cheaper guy, go for Salah in this FPL team, and we're going to go without Haaland. But with this fixture against Southampton, I can feel reasonably confident. And with Man City struggling at the moment, I also am less worried than I was before for this Game Week 13 fixture of Salah versus Man City. He has a good record against City anyway, so this guy has potential here. Now, next midfielder is Palmer. If we throw back the graphic on screen again, you can see Palmer is coming in third for the players with the kind of producing the best FPL point generating actions over the last 6 game weeks. And that's despite some very difficult fixtures. Now, I'm not going to go over my whole opinion on Palmer all over again. You guys will know already, I love Palmer in the easier fixtures. I am a huge Palmer fanboy for those nicer runs of fixtures. And that is exactly what Chelsea have for a very long time, including 2 newly promoted teams in the next 3 game weeks. What more could you want? So I think he is going to really turn it on over the coming game weeks. Really like the look of this pick. I would say that Palmer is pretty much an essential player to have in your FPL team right now, which brings us to our next midfielder, who is going to be Saka. Now, Saka, maybe a little bit more disappointing recently, has had some injury issues that, to be fair, may have not even gone away yet. And I am still waiting for some better news on Saka. The current news is that he was at the training ground for Arsenal, but we haven't actually seen him pictured training. Is this more Arteta mind games? I don't know. Hopefully we get some more information over the next 24 hours on Saka, because if he isn't available, I would be inclined to go for Mbeumo in this position rather than Saka, and then just wait a little while to see when Saka comes back. However, if Saka is only going to be out for 1 game week, maybe maximum, then I don't mind playing my first bench midfielder, who we're going to see very shortly. He's fine as cover. Maybe it is worth just keeping Saka in this team. But ultimately, over the next 4 game weeks, I don't think Saka has amazing fixtures anyway. So for me, he's not a must-have player, a little bit of a luxury player to have in my team, but a player I would like to have regardless. Now, I did just mention that I would put Mbeumo in my team if I had to remove Saka. But that does mean that Mbeumo is not in this starting 11. That may surprise you, but Bruno Fernandes is my fourth midfielder instead of Mbeumo. Yes, I'm trying to go a little bit different, slight differential on Bruno, and I'm really, really excited about what he can produce. Now, what we've seen already is Bruno is putting up those really nice attacking numbers. He's done that all season, but at times he has been playing maybe a little bit too deep, maybe a little bit too wide, maybe trying to do it all in the Manchester United team. That's been the trend throughout the entire season. However, under new manager Amorim, we're expecting him to play a very different role. Now, this is roughly how Man United could line up under Ruben Amorim. I'm sure there's a lot of debate about some of the positions, some of the players, but I think Bruno is one of the more secure players in this team, playing just behind this striker, very advanced with a lot of cover behind him, so he can do what he does best. We know how much of a brilliant football player he is, scoring goals, creating for his teammates, and over the next 2 game weeks against Ipswich and Everton, this could be very nice. Now, this will be the trial period for Bruno and Manchester United as we look to gather more information. How good are they? Do they perform? Because after the next 2 game weeks, the fixtures do get a little bit tougher. So if Man United genuinely are just smashing it, then maybe we just hold on to Bruno for the long term. But if it goes wrong, he is probably one of the players who I'd be willing to sell in around game week 14. Maybe for someone like Bowen, whose fixtures do look good from 14, but also maybe for another Chelsea midfielder. I'm looking at Neto, Madueke potentially there. It all remains to be seen. So Bruno on trial, he's not going to stay in my team long term necessarily, but he definitely has the potential to as well. Always nice to have those decisions to make in FPL. But let's move to the forward positions. First of all, we have got Alexander Isak, and looking through the forwards over the last 6 game weeks. Now, I have organized this data for per appearance because, unfortunately, Isak has not played all of the games recently because he has just come back from an injury. Now, he's fully recovered from this injury, so it would seem, which is really, really positive news for him. And I think we're going to see the Isak that we thought we were going to have in game week 1. Fully fit in an informed Newcastle team, smashing it. Talisman for his team, penalty taker. His data is only behind Haaland in the forward position at the moment, which is really, really good. This is insane stuff. 8.5 million. He's basically a cheap Haaland right now. Another Scandinavian who we expect to dominate, particularly in some of these nicer fixtures. And I certainly consider West Ham, Crystal Palace and Brentford to be really good fixtures. And even against Liverpool, it's a home fixture. We know what Newcastle are like at home, so we can have a bit of confidence in him in there as well. But let's move on to the next forward. And this is probably the forward I am least confident in, and that is Cunha. Now, Cunha's underlying data really is not that great. He really, really isn't. He has been getting FPL points, but he's also been massively overperforming his data. Getting sort of, 3 goals from something like 0.4 XG. Really crazy how he has managed to do that, but he has. He does have a decent amount of creativity, and the fact that he's on set pieces and potentially on some penalties as well does definitely put some things in his favour. And there are some good fixtures coming up for him from sort of game week 15 onwards, but over the next 3, I'm not super convinced. And if he wasn't a set piece taker and a penalty taker, I don't know if he would be in my team right now, particularly for 6.8 million. But I think he is a safe pick. He is secure minutes, which, looking at some of my defenders, maybe secure minutes is something that I do want to have in my team. And genuinely, he is a fantastic football player. But I do have my concerns. I do have my doubts. And I think if I had to change one player in this team, assuming Saka is fit, it might be Cunha. And the question really is, who would I prefer to Cunha? Maybe Raul Jimenez, or maybe Welbeck. Outside of that, no one really convinces me. Possibly Evan Nilsson. It might just be safer to go for Cunha. My final forward is João Pedro, and I'm going to throw up a quote for you guys from Brighton manager Fabian Hürzeler. who has said, when asked about João Pedro, yes, he makes the difference. I think every Premier League club has one player who makes the special things, and I think he's exactly that player for us. And he's not only a great player, he's also a great leader. You know, I think we underestimated him a little bit regarding his leadership skills. He's a great leader. He's very demanding. He demands a lot from teammates. He always sets the standards really high, and I think he's a big role model for all the young players. Those are shining indictments, and any concern about João Pedro's rotation risk, I think really does go out the window. And hey, even if he is on the bench, we've just seen what he can do from the bench against Man City with the goal and the assist. Penalty taker, 5.4 million, key player to his team. He is the Salah of Brighton, the Saka, the Palmer, the Isak of Brighton. That is what this guy is. 5.4 million, brilliant fixtures for a long time coming. For me, he is one of the first players on the team sheet in a wild card. Now, let's go to the bench now. Fabianski potentially will continue on as the starting goalkeeper for West Ham at just 4 million. That remains to be seen, but maybe we could consider playing him in the odd game week if he does keep his place, but I'm not banking on that. Morgan Rogers, good form, good fixtures, super cheap price tag. I bought him at 5 million, so I've got a lot of value tied up in Rogers, so happy to keep him. And that brings us to our final two defenders, Kirkes and Ait-Nouri, who complete my rotation. And this is basically how the rotation is going to work. So as you can see, Bournemouth, Villa, Wolves, Newcastle on screen right now. And every single game week, we've got until game week 20, but you really can go beyond that. Every week we have two decent fixtures, sometimes two brilliant fixtures from these four defenders. So game week 12, we've got Aston Villa and Newcastle, Digne and Hull. Then game week 13, we would switch to probably, we'd probably go for one of Kirkes and Hull alongside Ait-Nouri. Digne will play Chelsea away, so he would be benched for game week 13 for me. Game week 14, we have Brentford for Digne and Everton for Wolves. Very nice indeed. Then in game week 15, we've actually got a few options here, but Ipswich, Southampton and West Ham are the fixtures for Bournemouth, Villa and Wolves. So again, really nice. 16, really nice. 18 is probably the most difficult one here. I would play Kirkes against Crystal Palace and then one of, I guess, Ait-Nouri and Hull, depending on form a little bit there, I suppose. But we can kind of go through this in a while when we have a look at what my team will look like each game week. But in general, what I wanted to ensure is I have a solid rotation, but also a player like Kirkes, who I'm actually comfortable playing most game weeks here. He wouldn't be my ideal defender to play necessarily every game week. There's a lot of fixtures here where I'd be more than comfortable to play him. And if Digne does go wrong, well, Kirkes can come in, Hull and Ait-Nouri can rotate. That works really, really nicely. So I think I've got myself really nicely covered with these cheap attacking defenders who mostly play for solid defenses, maybe with the exception of Ait-Nouri. But as we know, Ait-Nouri has provided attacking returns so far this season, which is really nice, really positive indeed. So this is what my team looks like. We'll put the captain's armband on Salah. I think that's the safe and sensible captain to go for. Vice-captain on Palmer, although I do really like Palmer as a captain shout as well. In general, this team looks brilliant, not just for game week 12, but beyond as well. Decent rotations, lots of value for money picks here, and lots of really talismanic players. You look through my front seven here, my 4 midfielders and my 3 strikers. Every single one of them is a penalty taker from their team. Every single one of them is the talisman, the key player from their team. And, you know, you cannot underestimate how important that is going to be over this Christmas period. I love this attack. I really, really do. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what it can produce. Every time a penalty is given in FPL, I'm probably going to be on the right end of it. You would hope, wouldn't you? But, guys, I want to go through my team week by week to see how it looks. So we are back on the Fantasy Football Hub website. If you've seen some of the stats pages that we've looked at today, as well as the fixture tickers, that's all been from Fantasy Fantasy Football Hub. So if you like the look of anything you've seen on screen in today's video, as well as this tool, make sure you get your free trial right now. A month free trial is crazy. What a good deal. You know, just sign up for a free account right now. You can just get full access to everything. These are the tools I use every day for FPL. But this is the My Team tool, and it's given my team, my wildcard team, a rating of 99%. I think very shortly Palmer's flag, his injury flag, is going to be removed because he's been in training. If that is removed, I think this team will go up to an 100% team rating. So really happy to have a super high rated team. That means that my team is backed by the data, which I think to me is very important. We have to use it with nuance, but yeah, I think we're looking good here. So let's go through some of these game weeks and kind of have a look at how this team looks in each game week, how the rotations of the defenders in particular do play out. So let's go to game week 13, for example. And you can see Aït-Nouri and Hall are maybe players I play for this game week, with Kerkez and Digne on the bench there. But I think there is some argument to play Kerkez. The fact that I have Cunha, I probably back against the Bournemouth defence, however. Game week, oh well, by the way, guys, game week 13, it's putting Salah and Palmer pretty close for captain's points potential. So, you know, Palmer is probably going to be my captain in game week 13. That's another thing worth mentioning, but maybe Saka against West Ham is a consideration too. Game week 14, we would be looking to captain Palmer against Southampton, and in the defence, Digne comes back into play. Kerkez and Hall on the bench. Aït-Nouri going to play again against Everton, which is pretty nice. At this point, is where I would consider buying a, like I said, Bowen is one of the choices. If we look at Bowen's fixtures here from game week 14, he plays Leicester, Wolves, Bournemouth, Brighton, Southampton. Nice little run for him there if he can improve his form, I suppose. But also, I'm looking at Nesso, man. I really am. From the same period, game week 14, Southampton, Spurs, Brentford, Everton, Fulham at home. I like this man. If he can nail down that position, which I'm really hoping he can, because I think he could be a really nice, cheap asset. But this is only if Bruno does not perform. Alternatively, I can just play Rodgers. Rodgers is playing against Brentford at home in that game week, so I might not even need to play Bruno anyway. But moving on to game week 14, similar defensive setup here. However, Kerkez does play against Ipswich, so I'll have a big decision to make. Aït-Nouri or Kerkez. You know, if Digne looks like he might get rotated in 15, which is the midweek game week, by the way, guys, then maybe Kerkez comes in for Digne instead as well. But I have options. I have backup. I have cover. I can make this decision myself. Game week 16, moving on here. Again, Palmer looking like the captain against Brentford. Lots of captain opportunities for Palmer, which is really, really nice. Again, Rodgers, maybe play him ahead of Fernandes, not sure. Defence looks good though. Aït-Nouri at home against Ipswich, Hall at home against Leicester. And just to flick through some of these other game weeks, it looks pretty good in general for each week for who we would be captaining, who we would be benching, who would be playing. And yeah, that's kind of what my plan is going forward. This is before even transfers are really considered as well. So my team is looking really good. This is well planned, well structured for a long period of time, which I love. No real planned transfers. I've got my eyes on some future transfers, but nothing guaranteed, which is really nice to have yourself covered for a long period of time. And you can use your transfers a little bit more reactionary. Use them in response to new data, to injury, suspensions, anything like that. We can action things based on this kind of stuff. But that is my team in a nutshell. Make sure you do check out Fantasy Football Hub for your 30-day free trial. No reason to not get involved this time, guys. Link in the description. And I suppose thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, drop a like, do subscribe if you're new around here, and feel free to check out another video if you would like to. But I will see you tomorrow for another one, and I will see you later, mates. Bye-bye.